Good morning, St. Andrews College. I am Blake Etsy, and this is SAC Today. Spring has sprung, and the final term of this school year is underway. I had a chance to sit down with the head of school, Mr. McHenry, to capture his message for students in the home stretch. Let's take a look.
Well, I know that you're all very tired of COVID, as am I. It seems as though it's been here for about 3 decades now, and certainly understand your frustration, and we all want to have a third term that is as normal as possible. You know that we as a school will offer as much as we can to our students and families as we've demonstrated to this point. But our hands are a little tied at this moment. Hopefully gatherings will be allowed to be larger. Hopefully the vaccine rollout will go faster than we expect. We are committed to doing an in-person graduation. That's who I feel most for, and that is the graduating class and their families. There's not a day that goes by without me thinking about how we can improve the experience for our families, and in particular our boys, and in particular, again, our graduating students. So we are looking forward to Focus. It's going to be online, but we are trying to do some kind of semblance of an inspection. We have Spring Smash, and that's going to be primarily for middle school. So lots of good activities. We are very much looking forward to getting outside. We'll do whatever we can to make it as enjoyable as possible. I wish it was different. I wish it was better, but we will do our very best to make the experience for all of you, because you certainly all deserve the most fulfilling experience given how committed and positive everyone's been. So my fingers are crossed.
As for so many of us this year, the St. Andrews Dramatic Society has suffered through their share of challenges, including needing to pivot from live performances to video productions, going all the way back to last year's Focus Festival. Finn McNulty gives us an inside look at all the drama.
Well, gang, spring is just around the corner, and that can only mean one thing. It's Focus time! Oh yeah, I guess with literally everything else this year, Focus won't be the same. As I'm sure you've figured out, it's all going to be online this year. Think Andrew and Christmas from this year, but like
happening kinda in person.
The consequences of not being able to give a live performance this year, like usual, have been absolutely devastating for us. It's one of the greatest traditions here at SAC, and as with how awesome last year's performance was, it's safe to say that we had a pretty tough act to follow, but this is not what we expected, and we are all at the Dramatic Society very devastated. Not to worry though, because as usual, we are coming in clutch with an awesome online performance, including our version of one of the most renowned Broadway musicals of all time, starring yours truly. We've all been working non-stop on this project, sacrificing every weekend to film music videos, and we are so happy to see it finally coming into clutch, and we are sure that you guys are gonna love it.
Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for. You've been searching in the dark, your sweat soaking through the floor.
So set your calendars, because you people have got a lot to look forward to. Early May, we are gonna blow your socks, shoes, underwear, pants, baseball cap, all of it right off. For SIC Today, I'm Finn McNulty.
Another adjustment in school events will see the Pipes and Drums Celtic concert released as a recorded performance. This year will include large-scale collaborations with our other school bands. The concert will air April 9th, just before spring break. Grade 11 drummer Kyle Murphy has a sneak peek for us.
The St. Andrews Drum Corps has been practicing diligently in preparation for this year's virtual Celtic concert. I caught up with lead tip Noah Jeppesen to ask what he and the other drummers are doing to be ready for the performance.
I've been trying to practice every night, playing through all the scores we'll be playing. I've been working really hard to memorize the fanfare, and I'm also trying to be available to help everybody else learn the fanfare so we can put on a good show for Celtic Night.
Be sure to stay tuned for the Celtic concert premiering soon. For SAC Today, I'm Kyle Murphy.
In sports, NCAA March Madness is in full swing. The MLB season is right around the corner, and there's been big trades in the NBA and NHL. For this and more, here's Lachlan McTagg and Ty White with the Sports Desk.
What's that? My bracket's toasted?
This is the Sports Desk.
Hey everyone, he's Ty, I'm Lachlan, and this is the Sports Desk. It looks a little different. It's because we're in studio today. We decided not to hump a folding table around campus looking for good places to film, so we decided to make it easier on ourselves.
Thanks for holding the door, you bucket.
Friday 19th was the start of March Sadness, which saw a lot of upsets in the first round, consisting of Syracuse defeating San Diego State, North Texas beating Purdue, and my personal favorite, my Ohio State Buckeyes absolutely crashing and burning at the scene to none other than Oral Roberts. Lachlan, where the fudge is Oral Roberts? What even is that? Surprisingly, the Sweet 16 saw teams such as UCLA and Oregon State actually make it. But personally, my favorite was my boy Krutwig and Sister Jean bringing Loyola Chicago to the Sweet 16. The championship game for the tournament is on Monday, April 5th, and to be honest with you, I couldn't give a damn at this point since my Florida Gators crashed and burned with Ohio State, and I have absolutely no one to cheer for. I would say that my bracket's still alive and well, but that would be a bald-faced lie, so we're just going to cut to the next segment.
Again, for anyone wondering, the MLB season starts next week, so go Blue Jays. Moving on to the NFL now, where there's been quite the show in free agency so far. We have a quarterback swap in LA and Detroit as Jared Goff gets shipped up north, and Matthew Stafford heads down to the Sun in LA. The Giants offense got just a little bit better with the signing of Kenny Golladay. Ty requested that I say this, that the Chargers signed arguably the best, and that is put in very light terms because those are Ty's words, and Corey Linsley. Because, you know, in LA, centers win championships, not defense.
They do!
As well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have signed all 22 Super Bowl starters. So they are running it back in Tampa Bay. Believe it or not, Houston did get just a little bit more miserable as both DeAndre Hopkins and J.J. Watt are both in Arizona. The Patriots also went on an absolute tear on the first day of free agency, sparking people to say, Rome wasn't built in a day, but the Patriots offense, maybe. Well, 9-8 never looked so good.
Boom. Roasted.
The NFL draft will be held Thursday, April 29th, and things starting to get just a little bit interesting atop that draft board as the 49ers have traded up to get the 3rd overall pick, while the Dolphins are now back at the 6th overall pick.
Like many of you, I'm a huge Raptors fan, and on behalf of all of us, I think we can give a huge thanks to Norman Powell, who's actually headed off to Portland, and all he's done for the organization, helping us win in 2019. But it's okay, Raptors fans, because instead we got Gary Trent Jr., and we lost to the Pistons. Are you kidding me right now? The 76ers and the Jazz are top in their respective conferences. And on top of Norman Powell, some other big moves have been taking place as all-star forward Andre Drummond is heading over to play his ball for the Los Angeles Lakers and joining LeBron James, while players like LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin are joining Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden in Brooklyn. Yeah, so, since my Buckeyes treated me to an entry to the tournament, I guess since I've gone enough mad for both of us this episode, it doesn't really matter because we're going to head over to my friend Lachlan, who's going to explain the troubles in Buffalo at the moment.
I mean, we haven't made the playoffs in like 10 or 11 years. I was literally in like 3rd grade last time they made the playoffs. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't understand how we trade for Eric Stahl and then don't even get like a 2nd round pick. The price for Taylor Hall isn't even a 1st round pick. I don't understand what's going on in Buffalo. Like, why can't we put together a decent hockey team? We have literally lost 18 games in a row. Do you understand that? 18 games. That's like a month worth of hockey of just straight losing. I don't understand it anymore. We have okay goaltending. Actually, we have terrible goaltending. Our defense on paper should be really good, but it's not. We've had like 2 first overall picks in the last 5 years, one of which is basically almost injured for the season, and the other one is Rasmus Dahlin, who's getting walked on the nightly. I just don't understand what's wrong with Buffalo. Like, why us?
Our fun fact today at the Sports Desk is about the NCAA March Madness tournament, where when Abilene Christian beat number 3 seeded Texas in the round of 64, the school made approximately $120 million.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sports Desk. That's all we got for today. He's Ty. I'm Lachlan. We'll see you next time. Man, why am I an 8 seed?
I don't know. Why is Nolan even on the list?
Yeah, seriously, who invited that guy?
Isn't Dante a soccer player?
At this point in the year, we normally would have finished up March break. Instead, we'll be off for a week in mid-April. Riley Knox polled some of our students for their thoughts and what they have in store for the break.
March break has been postponed, and the new spring break will take place through April 10th through April 18th. Although the dates may have changed, the spring break always leaves our Andrians with open agendas. Today I asked a couple of students about what their plans were during the spring break.
I plan on spending most of my spring break making a lot of YouTube videos because that's usually what I do. And with all the free time that I'll have that day, I'll be able to edit a lot more videos and stuff like that.
I'm going to hopefully be playing a lot of beach volleyball and shooting some hoops. It's nice outside.
I'm spending some quality time with my family, going on a road trip, and going back home at Pickering.
Spring break, well, we're hoping for some good weather. I'm going to get outside, play some soccer, frisbee, spike ball maybe, see the fam, and most importantly, relax.
I'm going to be doing a lot of golfing and fishing. How about you?
Same.
Nice.
Some very exciting things our students have planned for their holidays. For SAC Today, I'm Riley Knox.
Last month, senior correspondent Ben Goring hosted a roundtable to discuss the experiences, challenges, and aspirations of Black students at St. Andrews. We've included an excerpt of the video in our last episode, and the full version is now up on our YouTube channel. Congratulations to all the students involved. This video has been the centerpiece of education and development sessions led by the Social Justice Council for our faculty, staff, and students over the last month. Ben checked in with Social Justice Council President Jonathan Chen to follow up on this process and the Council's goals.
Johnny, thanks for joining me today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
It's been a really big month since the roundtable came out.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see the response from our school community since the release of our student roundtable discussion, and I think it's meant a lot to all of our BIPOC students especially.
For those at home who are wondering, the term BIPOC refers to Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So basically anyone who experiences racialization in our society. This obviously includes Asian people. How do you think this video has resonated with our Asian students?
I think seeing you, Kyle, Tanaye, and David discuss your experiences has allowed other students, especially Asian students and other BIPOC students, to feel more comfortable in sharing the stereotyping and the microaggressions that they've experienced in their lives too. I certainly hope that we're initiating a trend where we're not attacking individuals, but we're raising awareness on issues like microaggression and stereotyping.
Would you be able to share some of these stereotypes and microaggressions Asian students face?
I think the biggest one is mixing up the names of Asian students. I think it's normal if you mix up our names a couple times after you first meet us, but if it goes on for weeks and months onwards, it really becomes a form of microaggression at the very least. Another one is that the stereotype of all Asian students are only academically focused, but that's not true because we all have our own hobbies. It's just that these hobbies might not necessarily conform to white Canadian culture and thus deemed as weird. Another thing is that sports like swimming are not really considered as a sport, where a sport is considered to be physical contact or require high athleticism like hockey or basketball or soccer. So some of these hobbies are really unique to each individual, but because they don't conform to white Canadian culture, they're deemed as unusual and considered to be inferior to those sports that are popular in white Canadian culture.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Viewers may not know, but the Black History Month discussion is actually a second in the series by the Social Justice Council. Last May, we had an Asian Heritage Month discussion.
Because I personally haven't experienced too much sort of overt racism at St. Andrews. I feel like after Corona happens, some things might change.
Unfortunately, it was near the end of the year where everyone's online due to the pandemic, and I don't think there was a late May SAC Day episode either, so we didn't really get the opportunity to get that out to the student body like we wanted. That being said, I'm really glad to see the positive impact that the roundtable last month has had on the school community.
The attacks in Atlanta left 6 Asian women murdered and is yet another grim chapter in the history of violence against women and against people of color. Do you think the increase in violence against Asians is related to the pandemic, or do you think the hate has just always been there?
I think the hate has always been there. I think it stems from European colonization and imperialism and the idea of social Darwinism starting since colonialism. On this continent, we can see examples of this from the exploitation of Chinese immigrants during the construction of cross-continental railways in the latter half of the 19th century, the internment of Japanese Canadian citizens during World War II, to the ongoing racist portrayal of Asians in modern-day entertainment industry that's been going on for generations that we're only starting to realize and resist. That being said, it has certainly been exacerbated by the pandemic and the perceived origin of COVID-19, where many still fail to realize that Asians are not only victimized physically by the virus, like everyone else is, we also have to face the unjustified blame and hatred of the existence of COVID-19. This is certainly worsened by having people in power, such as the former President of the United States, referring to COVID-19 as the Chinese virus.
Racism is systemic. It's entrenched in our history and in our power structures. But every single one of us has the power to demand change from our institutions. How does the Social Justice Council approach such a challenge?
I think the first step in implementing change is raising awareness on the existence of ongoing issues. Issues like microaggression and stereotyping haven't been recognized until recently. And events like the roundtable discussion and this conversation are aimed to educate the student body and the school community as a whole on the ongoing issues that have been neglected in the past. With that being said, the next step is to come together as a community to address these issues and come up with viable and effective solutions in order to make meaningful change. And that's already taken the first step with discussions between faculty and students on how to address these issues and create meaningful change.
Is there a message you'd like to deliver to not just our students, but to the Andrean community at large on how to be better brothers and be better allies?
Absolutely. First, let's embrace each other's individual and unique identities. Let's not confine each other to certain stereotypes. Second, let's hold each other accountable to the actions of each other and ourselves. Let's not condone actions of microaggression, stereotyping, and other forms of racism in our community.
Thanks again to my friend Jonathan Shen, President of the Social Justice Council, for joining me today.
Thank you, Ben.
As a reminder, you don't need to wait until February to celebrate Black history, nor wait until May to support Asian heritage. Diversity is our strength. For SAC Today, I'm Ben Goring.